Good day to all you wonderful folks out there. In today's video I will yet again be talking about another Dario Argento film, made after the year 2000, and as with the majority of them, this one was also dismissed by critics and large portions of his fanbase upon its release. But is it really that bad? Did we all just expect too much due to Argento's name being attached to it? Let's find out. I am Torstein from CinemaTerror, and this is Dario Argento's Giallo. Giallo is set in the city of Turin, where a crazy serial killer is on the loose with his bloodthirsty eyes set on beautiful young women. His newest victim is the model Celine, who goes missing after getting into a taxi while on her way home to greet her sister Linda, who has just arrived on a visit from New York. When trying to report her sister's disappearance to the police, Linda gets sent to the basement of the police station to get in contact with the antisocial detective Enzo Avalfi. Enzo has been on the hunt for this killer for a long time, and his dedication and work methods have put him in a position where he can work all by himself just the way he likes it. Even though he prefers his own company, he does feel sympathy towards Linda, and he brings her along with him on the hunt to hopefully find her sister and stop this violent killer once and for all. For those unfamiliar with the term Giallo, the name comes from Italian crime novels, which were usually printed with a yellow cover, hence Giallo, which translates to yellow in the beautiful Italian language. For most people outside of Italy, Giallo has become more known by its cinematic version, which comes in stylish and most often violent thrillers, reaching its popularity peak during the 1970s, much in thanks to visionary filmmakers like Dario Argento and others. So taking that term and using it as a movie title did promise a lot, and fans were hoping that this would be a return to form for Argento, after the disappointing reception of his previous film The Mother of Tears, which was the final entry of the trilogy made up of the supernatural horror classics Suspiria and Inferno. Which, by the way, is not as bad as what the majority believes, in my opinion, although I can fully understand that it was not the conclusion of the trilogy that most people were hoping for. Return to glory would not be in the cards with Giallo either, as like I said, the film was simply not well received by critics at its time, with some even dismissing it completely and putting the absurd torture porn label upon it.
Get off me! Get off me! Please, get off!
Blind if move.
While many might have wanted Argento to return to his old school usage of color and fluent, innovative camera work, Giallo is simply not that, and I feel it is unfair to judge the film based solely on those criteria. Instead, Giallo feels at home with Argento's other work in the 2000s, fitting right in with The Card Player and Do You Like Hitchcock, and maybe even Sleepless, which is perhaps the best received of Argento's modern movies, but for some unknown reason I never went back to rewatching it after its initial release, which I think I definitively should. Giallo is also perhaps the most standard thriller that he has done, and feels like it lacks his personality. Perhaps it is due to the story not being based on one of his own ideas, which is a first for any of his theatrical releases, but rather came from the two American screenwriters Jim Agnew and Sean Keller. What I find the most strange about their screenplay is that Giallo is not really a Giallo at all. A Giallo requires some type of mystery. They are usually whodunit movies, and that's not what we get here. Instead, we learn who the serial killer is early on in the film, and the title of Giallo actually refers to his skin, as he is struggling with a disease that turns him a bit yellow.
No, please. Please.
You want dance?
No, please.
Now you gonna die.
Sister, she could help you.
There are also some logical flaws in Giallo that are hard to ignore, especially concerning Enzo's backstory, which are told with the use of flashbacks. The script is also not playing on Argento's strength by being more character-driven due to the lack of mystery, but we do get plenty of references to his earlier work. I also strongly believe that the movie should have ended a scene earlier. If you've seen the film, then you know what scene I would have cut out. I think ending the film directly after the final confrontation would have been much better, and I don't want to explain any further, as I of course don't want to spoil it for any of you who might not have watched Giallo yet. So instead of a murder mystery, we rather have a ticking bomb scenario, where our two main heroes have to hunt down the killer before he ends another life. That is still a very much tried and true setup for a thriller, and it can provide high tension and give more information regarding the killer and his motives, instead of having detectives or what have you hunt down clues to figure out who is behind all of this bloody mess. That being said, I cannot say that I felt any type of tension or much interest in the Giallo killer, even though the movie does have a good pace to it and it visually looks nice and clean, but still lacking the flair that we all desperately crave from Argento and know that he can deliver.
Shit. Get an ambulance. Call a fucking ambulance, come on.
The killer does have a unique look to him, but his reasoning behind hunting all of these young, beautiful women have been done much better in so many other movies. He also lacks any frightening stature to him, but rather comes off much more pathetic, to the point where you can feel sure that he will not get away with any of this in the end. He is far from the evil mastermind that the movie wants you to view him as. He doesn't get a big body count in Giallo, but his acts are vicious and even brutal enough that some felt like this belonged in the foolish torture porn category. An absurd statement that can only work if you also label Argento's older films such as Tenebrae and Opera the same. I think it has much more to do with the clear visual look of the film, which brings a small increase in realistic feel towards the scenes, as the violence itself is not all that crazy or gory, and the camera does not linger on it more than it needs to. Our two heroes are okay. It was common back in the heyday of Italian cinema to bring in a familiar American name to star, and Giallo keeps that tradition going by having Adrien Brody play Detective Enzo. He was attracted to the project due to the idea of working with such a legendary filmmaker as Dario Argento. But this project wouldn't turn out to be all that he hoped for, as he got into a lawsuit against the producers due to unpaid wages. His portrayal as a moody, cigarette-smoking detective is decent. He doesn't get all that much to do, except hurting his lungs, but what did work for me was his connection with Emmanuelle Seigner as Linda.
And I saw him. After it happened, I felt like I lost everything.
Not that the character of Linda was all that interesting either, but I did like the connection the two of them got through shared experience with trauma. Enzo had a traumatic experience in his childhood, which is still forming him as a man today, and he can see himself and relate to the hurt that Ginda is going through in the present, while she leans on him both as a detective but also as a human being who understands her pain. While not a big focus of the film, I still think that this element kept Giallo interesting from a story perspective. Speaking of Brody, he does also play the killer under the anagram Byron Diedra. Clever. I also want to give a small shout out to the experienced actor Robert Minani as Inspector Mori. While he does play an important part in the story, he does not get a lot of scenes, but he and his facial hair feels right at home as an inspector in a brutal Italian thriller, and I enjoyed the few moments he was on screen. Music has always played a big part in Argento's work, and while there are no Goblin or Claudio Simonetti scores to be found in Giallo, the contribution by Spanish composer Marco Verba is quite good. There are no particular pieces that stuck out to me, but I did take notice several times during the viewing that the music was well put together, so it is only fair that I do mention it.
She in the dark. You make me a problem. She no come out of the dark.
Listening.
Capisce?
Giallo is a weird entry to Argento's filmography. With a title like that, it kinda promises more than what it delivers, and it feels today that no one particularly cares for the film, including the ones involved in making it. Giallo only has a 2.2 out of 5 on Letterboxd and 4.4 out of 10 on IMDb, which brings me to the final conclusion that Giallo is in fact underrated. It might not rival Argento's more popular work from the past, but I would say that it is an entertaining thriller that feels a bit bigger in scale than some of his other ones that he made after the year 2000. If you enjoy newer Argento movies, then Giallo should absolutely be worth your time. I am sure that I will keep revisiting it every 5 years or so in the future, and I'm giving Dario Argento's Giallo a positive 3 out of 5. So, have you seen Giallo? Did you dislike it as much as the rest of the world seemed to do when it was released, or do you share my kinder feelings towards the film? Let me and others know in the comment section below. And if you want to hear me talk more about modern Argento movies, then you will find plenty of them on my channel, so make sure to check those out. Hope you enjoyed this one. I will see you soon again for more videos on all kinds of violent movies, here on CinemaTerror. Thank you.